Hi there, Bernie Morrow again from Our Vital Earth, the worm farm, and so many people have asked me details on how to do the feeding. Well, I am going to give you the details on how to do the feeding, but it's going to be filled with humor, because I always feel like that you learn and you remember whenever something is done with humor. But the first thing that I want to show you is that we have 3 working trays here. Always you know that you have started with the bottom tray, and whenever that was filled with medium, you went to the second tray. When that was filled with medium, you went to the third tray. So now, let's go ahead and we're going to look at this third tray. You're going to see that my blankie is on the top, which is a double piece of newspaper. I can dig down in here, and I have worms in here. And remember, I just put worms in the very bottom, and they just keep traveling. They travel to visit their friends on one layer or the other, or they like the buffet better on one layer than the other. Okay, so I'm going to take this one off, and then let's take a look at this one. Look at all the worms here. Now this one here is eaten down far more than what this one is, because this was the tray that I was feeding. This one was the tray that I fed before I started to feed this one. Now let's go down to the tray below that. This tray was my beginner tray in this particular cycle of my 3. This tray here is ready to be harvested. And later I will show you also how to do harvesting. But this here is just, has nothing more in there to eat. This little place here was a little strip of paper, or I should say a little plastic strip, but it had ink on it. They ate the ink off and they left me the plastic strip. So there's nothing left in here for them to eat. So now what I'm going to do is show you how I feed my worms. Now you all can feed your worms every day if you choose to. But whenever you start out with 1 pound of worms, you want to feed them 5 pounds of garbage per week to start off with. And always whenever you come back to feed them again, there should be at least 25% of garbage that has not been eaten. Food that they have not touched as yet. Simply because if you wait for them to eat everything, they will cease to reproduce. They feel that they're bringing young into a time that there may be a famine, and they want to make sure that their young have plenty to eat. So you always want to make sure whenever you come back to feed them that they have at least 25% of food that has not been eaten as yet. Now when you have young children, you want to feed them every day, sometimes many times a day, but just try to limit it to, say, 5 pounds for a total week. Because the children, hey, it doesn't matter how often you feed them. I like to feed mine once a week because I like mine to be not very work intensive. So this is my blankie on the top. I take and I pull back my blankie, okay? Now here it is, my trusty little hand rake, all right? But first of all, the way I come to my worm cafe, I say, okay, babies, if you're going to come to my table to eat, you're going to have a shower. Don't you tell your children that? Okay, so for each tray that I have, I am going to put 1 quart of water. I have 3 quarts of water in here. So I am going to pour this water all over my tray, and they're taking their shower. I leave my spigot open so that my worm tea can come right on through. Now the reason why I'm putting this water over them to get my tea to begin with is I'm washing the urine off of the bodies of the worms. The worms poop and urinate like we do. They can wiggle away from their poop, which is called worm castings, and their worm urine is actually attached to their skin like our perspiration is. Don't you take a shower to get the perspiration off? Well, that's what we're doing for our worms. They're taking a shower. Now the next thing, I say, you know, I want my worms to have manners. So I am going to make a little round bowl in the center here of my medium to put their food. This is going to be their bowl. Now what I'm going to do here, and the reason why I always do it the center, I know that you will find sites that will say, put it in one place, then another place, then another place, then another place. I never do that. I do it always in the center, in the bowl. Because if they have a problem, if there is something that's burning their skin, if there is something that is acidic, if it is getting too warm, any of these things, they will run to the sides. And whenever they run to the sides, I know immediately whenever I open my worm cafe that they're having a problem. And I know that it's either gotten to be too warm up there or, you know, in their medium, or that something is burning their skin and is acidic, or perhaps the pH balance is not correct. So those are the reasons why I do that. Otherwise, if it's scattered all over, how would I ever know that they were having a problem? This way, I know. All right, so I'm going to feed them. Now this here, I weighed this. This here is 5 pounds. And I ground mine. I grind mine, I put it into a blender. I grind it because the smaller that it is, the faster they can eat it. Now that's not necessary, but whenever you chop it up as small as you can because they will eat it faster. Now, if you're talking about watermelon, or if you're talking about cantaloupe, or if you're talking about avocado, or something like this, oh, cut it in half or something and put a whole big slice in and have fun with it. Because these worms, if you give them a half of an avocado, you come back and you will have a shell that is filled with worms that it looks like you have a worm bowl, or a bowl of worms. And you can do the same thing with cantaloupe. They're just crawling all over. You know, and it's fun, and especially whenever you have kids. They love to see that. Or if you put a piece of bread in there or a hamburger bun, and you pick that up, and the worms are hanging on it like, don't take it from me, don't take it from me, okay? So anyway, I'm going to be putting this in here. I'm feeding them in their bowl, okay? Now, I say, all right, you've been fed, but how are you going to eat it? You don't have any teeth. Because a worm has no teeth, so you don't have to worry about the worms biting you. The worms have a gizzard like a chicken or a bird. And you know, a chicken or a bird needs to have grit in their gizzard in order to be able to digest their food, to move their food through their system. Well, we use a grit, but it's volcanic grit. We take volcanic grit from 7 different locations so that all of our product that we get, our castings, our tea, has 77 trace elements and minerals in, because we want that to be in our food. And the reason why we are doing all of this is because we want to eat healthy. We want to have our own gardens. We want to have our children to be healthy, as well as our pets. So, all right, so I say, fed you, but you have no teeth. So here is my bucket. We always have it in a 7-pound bags, which is a year's supply. And I sprinkle this over it. Okay, that's giving them their teeth. And of course, whenever you say you're giving them their teeth, when you're talking about the kids, they think they're running out to get their false teeth to put into their mouth, you know. Okay, so now I've done this, and now I'm going to cover it over a little bit with the old medium that was in there, and it's also very wet. So then I say, babies, I gave you a shower, but I didn't give you a towel to dry off with. Oh my goodness, how thoughtless of me. So I have my shredded paper, and you see each one of these pieces of shredded paper can be a towel for one of the little worms, so they can run off with their towel. So now that helps to absorb some of that moisture that I had put in there. And as you see, I keep my spigot open so my tea is coming right through. I always keep my spigot open because I want the worms to get all the oxygen that they can possibly have. I want the microbes, because this is loaded with live microorganisms. And I want my live microorganisms to be very, very active. And so They need the oxygen for that. So now after I have put my dry shredded paper on top, now this is my blankie. And you know, your blankie here can be double piece of newspaper, it can be cardboard, it can be burlap, it can be your cotton t-shirt, you can even put your cotton socks on there, okay? Anything that they can eat, be in the dark, and be edible, okay? So then that is, I'm finished. I'm finished with that. Now, the only thing is, if I gave them all of that 5 pounds and it's warm outside, or maybe there were a lot of bananas in it, I'll come back the next day and I'll check it to see if it's very warm. If it gets very warm, the worms can handle the temperature from 40 to 90 degrees, but they really like 70 degrees. But I take a 2-liter soda or juice bottle. This is what I lay right on top of my double piece of newspaper, and guess what? Now they have central air conditioning, and they're happy. And that is the answer as to how you can take care of your worms in a very hot climate, because this is something that I had come up with many years ago. Whenever being here in Florida, we were told that we could not raise worms in Florida. And this was a throwback on way back whenever there was no air conditioning, that we know how we cooled down. So this here is an exciting way of keeping your worms nice and comfortable, and they will keep producing. So if you have any other questions, you know, in regards to the feeding and so on, hey, you can contact me at www.ourvitalearth.com, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you so much, and God bless.